Wagwan lads and ladettes, welcome back to the King's Catalogue, where today I want to talk about a game that I've been playing recently. It's quite an old game, but, I've been playing it so much and I've very close to 100% in it, so I thought I'd talk about it today. That game is Agents of Mayhem, which is a spin-off from the Saints Row series, and yeah, I'll go straight to my review now. So, as I said before, I've nearly 100%ed this game. The only thing I haven't got is... Ambulance, man, can you just not die another time? As I was saying, the only thing I've not done is 100%ed, with all the red crystals, because there's 350 of them, I believe, and some of them are very tedious to get to. So I've basically just done all the side missions, done all the main missions, done the main story, got all the characters. I even have every costume, but I've done all that. So what is Agents of Mayhem? So it's a spin-off from the Saints Row series, which is completely unrelated, but it's somehow connected through their multiverse, I think. I don't know. And I was going to give you the story, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have no fucking clue what the story actually is. And this isn't just me being, autistic or something and just not actually caring. This is just me not really getting anything from a story. There's not really much semblance of a story. It basically is villains have world. We take world from villains. Villains lose, we win. That's the entire story. It was just very boring story-wise. But, if you ignore that, the game has some highlights, okay? The game is alright. So the characters, there's quite a lot of characters, so I'm not going to talk about many at all. I'll tell you my set when I played. I had all the DLC that came with the game. I'm pretty sure I spent £2. £2 for the game and every single bit of DLC. So, I had quite a few characters to start off with. And the characters I mainly played were Hollywood, who was one of the starting 3 characters, Johnny Gat, who you might know from the Saints Row series, and I kind of switched between the other one, Red Card being a German football fan, and Kinsey from... I can't remember what she's called now. She's basically a hacker. She's from Saints Row, Kinsey. But I basically, them 4 were the only characters I really played. The other ones weren't very interesting to me. And they're alright. Those characters are pretty good. I only played Johnny Gat because he's from Saints Row, but he's actually probably one of the best characters in the game. His shotgun just does unbelievable damage, and he's a great character. Same with Hollywood. His gun's really good. He gets loads of abilities. His mayhem abilities are overpowered. But apart from that, all the other characters I would say are completely just boring. Even like Oleg, or some of the other Saints Row characters they ported over. They're not interesting at all. I have no interest in any of them. They're all not very good gameplay-wise, and story-wise, did very little. And I wouldn't mind this as much if it wasn't one of the biggest focuses being the variety of characters, when most of your characters are really shit. But to be honest with you, this isn't completely a bad thing, because it just means there's a wide variety of gameplay. I could find these characters really shit, but someone else could find them and think they're amazing. It's all up to, your personal opinion. And there is a wide variety of playstyles, so that's somewhat of a good thing. I'm just going to go through some of my pros now. As I said before, some of the characters are very fun to play. Johnny Gat, Hollywood, Kinsey. Who's another one? Red Card. I can't. There's one that was really fun, but I can't remember the name. Oh, Lazarus. Yeah, they throw little discs. They throw these little metal spikes. I really don't know. I wasn't really paying much attention to the characters. Some of the gameplay features are pretty fun. I would say some of the gameplay features are great. You can summon a car to you if you're somewhere on the map. You don't have to locate the car. If you just press the down pad, it will just drive towards you, and you don't even have to get into it. You can just automatically jump in, which is, it's quite fun if you're just walking around. It's a lot faster just get your car. You get it quickly, you can drive really fast, so travelling across the map is fine. And each character has their own playstyle and ability. I did already talk about that, so I'm not going to touch on that much, but it's good to see a wide variety of gameplay. With all that said, there's quite a few cons for this game. The lack of a story. So the story, as I said before, pretty crap. There is very little to it. It's pretty boring. There's not really much at all going on. It's just not interesting. After the story, the game is pretty fucking boring, I'm not going to lie. The main missions were good, and some of the, special missions where you play as a certain character, they're alright. I'm not really a big fan of them, because I like to play my own characters rather than these, just terrible characters. But I guess it makes sense, and they're alright. But apart from that, pretty boring. The collectibles, they were alright. They weren't terrible, but once again, pretty fucking boring. And the layers are boring as hell. This is one of my biggest complaints. The layers, they are far too frequent. They are all the exact same. There is very little to actually doing the layers. It's a completely boring thing they've done. They've made all of the rooms a carbon copy of each other. They've just Control-C, Control-V the entire bit. And this is one in... Oh, God. I'd say 1 in 3 missions, you have a layer. There's a lot of layers in this game, and you have to do all of them if you want to get 100%. And there's a lot of layers you actually have to just do in the story in general, and they're just completely not fun to do. And after you do that layer, you get the fun fight of a terrible boss. The bosses in this game are pretty boring. There's only a couple I found interesting. Don't remember the names, but there are just a couple that are alright. But these bosses are just so fucking boring. There's just nothing to the game. And then when you actually get to the final battle, the boss is just completely predictable. It's not interesting to fight them, so you defeat them really quickly and there's just nothing to it. But I don't think I spent over 3 minutes on a boss. I had the same thing when I played, what's it called? Crackdown 3. All the bosses, sub 3 minutes. I never struggled in any of them. But I guess that might be part of the gameplay. The game wasn't hard anyway, so, I will add that to my cons, actually. The game wasn't hard at all. I played most of it on a very high difficulty. I think I played it on 11 mostly. And the only thing that changes through the game, when you put it on a harder mode, there's not more enemies. There's not like a different kind of enemy. They don't send harder enemies. They just make the same enemy, the same 4 types of enemy, but a little bit stronger. So it's just, I don't know, it's not going to make it more hard if it's the same thing. And finally, I want to talk about some just personal opinions. The game wasn't completely awful. I'm kind of shooting it over a bit because it is a review. I've got to be exaggerated, but the game isn't awful. Okay, if you play it just playing the main story, just doing the fun bits, it's a fun game. I played most of the game. I've spent I'd say about 35 hours around that ball mark. But if you do under that, if you do about 15 hours of the game, it's fun. It's worth it. It was only £2 for me to get the full thing with all the DLC as well. So if you just did that, got the Johnny Gat and Red Card and get all the fun characters, it's a great time. But most of the battles were lame, predictable, a bit boring after that. All the side things as well, like collecting cars, they don't actually count or anything. You just get a very, very, very small amount of cash. There's no point in doing it. And yeah, there's no real interest in that. And one thing I would have liked is to play as Legion. On the cover of the game, you see 2 different sides, one being Mayhem, one being Legion. And I kind of assumed that meant I could play Legion as well, like play as the villains. A good example of this is on Garden Warfare 2, which is a game I really like. It's got the plants and the zombies on the cover, and you can play both sides. You can play both areas of that game. But for some reason in Mayhem, you play as these really boring characters, and I would have actually really enjoyed to play Mayhem. With all that said, I'm going to give this game a score of 6.5. As the game was fun, I did enjoy it, but there's a lot of problems with it. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate your viewership. If you can stick around, I'd much appreciate that. And yeah, that's it from me. See ya.